All right, I think we're live. Hopefully, no technical difficulties today, everyone. Definitely, if you're in the chat, let me know how the quality is throughout the video. Did a lot on the back end to avoid the issues we've been having going live in the past. But we wanted to go live here, guys, because tomorrow morning we have a 10 a.m. card, Eastern Standard Time, UFC Fight Night Qatar. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. But Nick Morrow, DFS here, as always, helping you break down the UFC card from a DFS angle as well as a betting and fight breakdown angle. Going to give you guys all the information I was able to accumulate this week. We have a lot of newcomers on this card, some really interesting matchups. Coming off a fun pay per view last week. Fun if you like grappling, I guess, in those two uh, top fights for the titles, the co-main and the main. But pretty good card overall, and looking forward to this one as well. Some of the fight nights we get at the Apex, not a ton of name value, but usually when they're in the Middle East, the UFC does what they can to really load things up. So appreciate you guys being here. We're going to get into the fight by fight breakdown in just a minute, but before we do, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. It helps us keep getting this free content out to you. And if you want to get behind the paywall, now is a better time than ever because not only do you get access to the slate breakdown, the daily plug written by Derek, you get access to the model, which has all the fighters rated for both DraftKings and FanDuel, as well as ownership projections. But the lineup builder right now just went under major renovations. It's as strong as ever, improved UI, a ton of new features, and yeah, it's absolutely awesome if you're looking to mass multi-enter. And for a volatile sport like MMA, like the UFC, when it comes to DFS, definitely a good sport to maybe experiment with some multi-entry stuff. So definitely check out those links. But enough pleasantries and ads and all that good stuff. Let's get right into the fight by fight breakdown here. Going to use DraftKings here to click on the fighters, kind of pull them up as we talk through. But we got a nice main event here between Arman Tsarukyan and Dan Hooker. Tsarukyan was supposed to fight for the title, and he was forced to pull out. That was back when Islam Makhachev was still the lightweight champion. Injured his back. He said that he was overtraining, and that was the real reason he had to pull out of that fight. They moved Moicano in. Islam dominated Moicano, but enough about those two. They're not on this card. Arman has been out of action since April of 2024. Tsarukyan, extremely gifted athlete, really good everywhere. His striking's come a long way since we saw his debut, which actually came against Islam Makhachev, where his grappling was fully on display, both offensively and defensively. Tsarukyan averages 3.2 takedowns per 15 minutes. Great submission grappler, really solid ground and pound as well. And his striking on the feet continues to show considerable improvements. We saw the K over Dariush. Prior to that, Silva, I mean, his level of competition for someone ranked one in a very stacked division, it's good. It could be even better, though, but he's in a good matchup here, I think, stylistically against Dan Hooker. Hooker on a bit of a resurgence after a few tough losses. Obviously, you're going to lose to Makachev on that climb towards the title. And then Arnold Allen was a tough spot. Michael Chandler. Other than that, though, he has looked good lately. And the thing about Hooker, he'll always fight for your money if you back him as an underdog. It's just the biggest hole in his game is that defensive grappling, and that's likely going to be an issue for him here. It is notable last time out against Gamrot, another guy who, even more so than Tsarukyan, looks to grapple. Hooker did do a good job working his way back to his feet, frustrating Gamrot, pulling away, landing the more damaging strikes, and stealing that fight on the scorecards as a huge underdog. But yeah, this is a similar stylistic matchup, but I do rate Tsarukyan higher than Gamrot. The difference is Tsarukyan's much heavier on top. He has better jiu-jitsu compared to Gamrot, in my opinion. Gamrot is relentless with the pursuit of the takedowns, but what Tsarukyan's able to do with him once he gets the fight there, it is much better compared to someone like Gamrot, in my opinion. Hooker getting up there in age, I mean, relatively speaking for the division, I think 35 or so years old now, is the better striker in this matchup, mind you, lands 5 significant strikes per minute. But the issue is he absorbs 4.7. So Dan is very much kill or be killed. He'll get in the pocket, he'll swing. He does have some power, but at the same time, he takes a lot of shots, which could be an issue for him here against a powerful guy in Tsarukyan. Additionally, that style does open up the ability for his opponents to take him down. So in so few words, I do like Tsarukyan here to get it done. I mean, if you're looking at the money line, I do think it's a little bit wide. Minus 600 feels a bit insane, given the very long layoff. But all that being said, I do like him for DFS. I definitely would have more exposure to Tsarukyan than I do Hooker, and it would take me a lot of lineups to start hedging with some Dan Hooker exposure. But there is a world where it works out for you. Obviously, it would present massive leverage. 5 round fight, not really a fight I'll be looking to stack because if Arman gets his game going, Hooker's not going to score that well off his back, in my opinion. Tsarukyan notably is the highest owned play on the slate. So again, the only reason to really look to Dan Hooker, in my opinion, is maybe just DFS, hoping you get that leverage. It's MMA, anything can happen, but I do think Tsarukyan gets it done. Honestly, probably inside the distance. At the end of the video, I will have my best bets for you, and I do have one for that main event, so keep that in mind. But where these guys are priced, I mean, there's a lot of expensive fighters on this card that are kind of untested. Tsarukyan, one of the better payups, and he rates just behind Yakyayev against Tsarukyan as the top OF index play on the slate. All right, so getting into the swing of things here. Been a long day, guys. We had the NBA stream, had my regular work to do, a bunch of stuff, but we're here for the love of the game. We got a really fun co-main event here, or it could be fun. It might not be. Between Ian Machado Gary and Bilal Muhammad. Muhammad last time out lost to Jack Della Maddalena, gave up that title that he captured over Leon Edwards. That win now not aging tremendously uh, good, for lack of a better word. But Bilal, when he's at his best, well-rounded fighter, certainly prefers to grapple, has excellent cardio, really solid durability for the most part. We've only seen him put down a few times. But he's taking on a fighter here in Ian Machado Gary that does pose some difficulty for him stylistically, in my opinion. If we're looking at the money line right now, we're seeing Gary around a minus 265 to minus 270. I honestly think that's fair. Gary, the best skill of his, in my opinion, is his footwork. He does a really good job circling away from his opponents, kind of head faking, leading them around the cage, kind of forcing them to fight at his pace in his style of fight, which is more often than not a point style kickboxing match. We saw that against Prates, where he was able to circle away. In the fifth, he kind of got lackadaisical, got caught there. But this matchup with Bilal is a 3 round fight. Bilal, in his fight against Della Maddalena, did not pursue the takedowns as aggressively as I think most people expected him to. He does still average 2.24 per 15 minutes. Gary does have a solid 73% takedown defense. But yeah, I mean, Rachmanov took him down. I don't think he's been taken down very much recently. And again, his size is going to be significant here. He's a tall fighter. He really sets a tough, strong base, which when he's up against the cage makes him increasingly difficult to take down. And Bilal's wrestling is actually the best up against the cage. So I do think that could neutralize that a little bit here. I will also say, on the feed, I don't really think either of these guys have true one shot KO power outside of maybe a head kick or something like that. But Gary is the much better technical striker by a really wide margin. I think he's going to be able to kind of lead Bilal into traps, land some big damage here. I don't think he'll probably find a KO, but I think he could frustrate Bilal, similar to what we saw against Della Maddalena. And again, with this being a 3 round fight, I'm not really concerned about cardio on either side. I will say Bilal's live as an underdog. I mean, I've historically underestimated this guy. I mean, he comes into matchups against Burns when Burns still looked half decent. Brady knocked him out. I mean, Edwards, where he captured the title, he's constantly an underdog, and that's what we're getting here once again, coming off that title fight loss. There is this trend, I don't know the exact number, but fighters who lose the belt without defending it do tend to go on losing streaks. That's just a thing, kind of is what it is. But again, I don't think we need to get into the intangibles too much here. Like stylistically, I like Gary. I think he's the better striker. I think his footwork makes it difficult for Bilal to take him down. I will say more likely than not, though, this does go to the scorecards. Bilal could secure a few takedowns here. Gary probably works his way back to the feet. I don't know. At his price, even in a loss, he could be useful. I think in low risk contests, I don't mind mixing in some Bilal, but as far as upside goes, I do prefer the Gary side, even though I don't know that he'll score all that well for us in terms of DFS. If we pull up his game logs, I mean, he's going to decisions more often than not. Scored well against Protest, but mind you, that was a 5 round fight. Obviously, not much to look at otherwise once he's taking on ranked opposition. I mean, Magny, Neil Page, just really low scores. We could probably see something similar here, especially if he's spending time defending takedowns. We'll probably take a finish to pay off that price. So I like Gary. I think he's going to win here, probably via decision. But I don't love him as a DFS play. I actually think Muhammad's a bit more useful. And if this is a card that has a ton of favorites hitting, maybe he could end up optimal even in a loss. He could simply pull off a narrow decision win here as well if he could get the grappling going. And I don't know, Gary's a bit slow to get going. But again, love Gary here. I do think the money line's fair. I think he's a useful bet piece if you want to parlay him. But Muhammad historically has cost me some money. so just take that with a grain of salt. In the feature bout here, we have light heavyweights Alonzo Menifield taking on Volkan Ozdemir. Ozdemir, former title challenger, really potent striker, decent on the mat, especially defensively. But yeah, getting up there in age. I mean, a lot of this division is a bit older compared to the other smaller divisions. Obviously, that makes sense. But shockingly, Volkan's actually the younger fighter here against Menifield. He's been taking on the better level of competition as well, in my opinion. I mean, Ulberg has been on a tear. We saw Volkan go to the scorecards with him, landed 96 significant strikes, so he did some damage in that spot. Obviously, the KOs of Walker, the finish of Guskov are aging pretty well now, with both of them coming off a win. And then we're way back in 2022. So I like Volkan. I think he's the better technical striker here. If we're looking at the numbers, I mean, he lands nearly 5 significant strikes per minute, absorbing around 4.2. So he is hittable, but the volume he puts out does force a lot of his opponents to fight moving backwards. In Monifield, that's kind of the story of his success or lack thereof in the UFC. When he's able to kind of impose his will and move forward, and he is aggressive, he's excellent. But we do see him overly tentative at times. It's extremely frustrating to watch him if you're backing him. But here in this particular matchup, he's always live for the KO. He could pull off the upset. But I do think his range of outcomes or his likelihood of hitting a win here is much narrower than that of Volkan because of the technical differences. And yeah, these guys, same reach. I mean, there's going to be similar size. Obviously, Minifield's like a specimen in that he's muscle bound. But I do favor Volkan's durability and cardio. So I like Volkan here. I think this fight mostly takes place on the feet. Monifield could push him up against the cage a little. I don't think that scores all too well. I think Volkan lands the bigger shots, probably finds the finish. Because we have seen Menifield kind of check out at times if he's not having things go his way. And again, forced to move backwards, that could be the story of this fight. Looking at the money line quickly, Ozdemir around a minus 220. Again, I think that's fair. I don't want to be on too heavy of a favorite in light heavyweight matchups, given the general likelihood of a finish on either side. But I do think Volkan's the better technical striker. He's more proven. He's been taking on better competition as well. All right. Again, appreciate you guys being here. Feel free to hit comment or yeah, just let me know how your Friday night's going. I'm not looking at my NBA stuff right now. I'm trying to just focus on this, but definitely looking forward to watching some basketball afterwards. I think LFA has a decent card on as well if you're looking for MMA. But continuing on this UFC card, not to get too far off track, we got a really interesting matchup here between Mittelbeck, Oralby, and Jack Hermanson. So Hermanson is moving down a weight class. Oralby is moving up a weight class. Hermanson, talented grappler. I mean, we've seen clips of him wrestling with Kamzat. We've seen him securing nice submission wins over guys like Kevin Gastelum. I mean, win over Curtis. His striking seemed far improved. The win over Joe Pyfer, obviously, probably going to age pretty well. And yeah, when you consider the weight classes, I mean, going into this week, I think a lot of us were concerned what he looked like on the scales, especially coming off a knockout. Like older fighters, when they move down in weight historically, it's not always a good thing. Like there are exceptions to this rule. But coming off a knockout, and it's only a few months ago, like there's definitely concerns about his durability coming in here. On the other side, though, we do have Mittelbeck Oralby, who's been fighting at 155 pounds. We saw these guys face off at ceremonials. Jackie is much bigger. Like his frame is wider. In terms of height, he's only a couple inches taller. And Hermanson has like this hunched over posture. So it's not that you see it there necessarily, but the muscle, like just the width of these two guys, pause, is definitely on the Hermanson side of things. Hermanson, really not the best striker, a little bit wonky, for lack of a better word, in his approach. But he's been better defensively lately. He does land 5 significant strikes per minute compared to 3.7 absorbed. When he's finding most of his success, though, it is on the mat, and he's taking on a wrestler here in Oralby. This is a fight I can see going either way. I mean, I think the best version of Jack probably has to weather a bit of a storm in the first round, but then he could take over, win the second, third, maybe even find a late finish. The worst version, though, just gets chinned by Oralby. And I don't even rate Oralby's power all that well, but I am just so concerned about the durability on Hermanson moving down. I mean, there was a few fights last week where I was, yeah, I'll go with the skilled fighter like Oracek. Morales probably finds the KO. Probably finds the KO. It feels a little bit like that here. Difference is Oralby is not exactly like this power puncher, so I'm willing to go with the more skilled vet. I do like how good he looked at weigh-ins. He seems locked in. His medials seem to check out. Oralby great, but very inconsistent. And if he doesn't have a huge grappling advantage over his opponents. I don't know that I want to back him as a favorite here. Hermansson's actually an underdog I'm going to be on. Probably take a little bit of a sprinkle on his money line. Definitely have heavy exposure to him in DFS. But I do want to have oral buy exposure as well. Hermansson plus 170, up to a plus 184 on FanDuel. I know we mostly use DK here, but really decent value on him as the underdog. And oral buy, I mean, at his price, probably needs that KO to pay off this tag. I think he could get it. But yeah, I'm on Hermansson here. Not confident at all, though. Definitely get exposure to both sides of that fight. I think either fighter could end up optimal, especially because Hermansson's so cheap. Just pull up the graphics here real quick to make sure I didn't miss any. Oral buy, yeah, here we go. 35% owned on DK. He is very popular. So again, if you're looking for leverage, I think you could do worse than Jack Hermansson. I'm gonna take a sip of my drink. And then I'm gonna read you an excerpt from Derek Phillips's MMA Daily Plug this week. So while Hooker's, we're going back to the main event of this one. I missed this. This is on me. But Hooker's 78% takedown defense looks fine on paper. He hasn't fought many high level wrestlers. The majority of his fights outside of Gamrot, where he was taken down 5 times, and Makachev, where he was immediately submitted, have been against strikers. Tsarukyan scored 116 DK points or more 3 times, and all of those came in 3-round fights. So if he has a dominant wrestling performance here with a well-timed finish, he could absolutely shatter the slate, even at 9,500 on DK. So should have read this after I broke down the main event, but couldn't agree with Derek more. Absolutely love Tsarukyan here. One of my favorite payups, even as chalk. I think he's worth getting to. And again, just a quick recap. I'm actually taking Hermansson as my first underdog on this card. There's a few. I'm taking some risks. Am I confident in many of them? No. Hermansson's not one I'm confident in at all, but I do think there's value on him. I do like the potential leverage as well for DFS. Interesting matchup here at heavyweight between Waldo Cortez Acosta and Shamil Gaziev. Shamil Gaziev was preparing for a fight with Sergey Spivak, who pulled out, I think, on Sunday evening, maybe late or early Monday. But either way, getting the late notice replacement here with Waldo Cortez Acosta flying across the world. Coming off that nice win over Ante D'Elia, where he was eye poked, a lot of people thought he was finished, and then he quickly KO'd D'Elia, who kind of had an adrenaline dump celebrating what he thought was a victory. So prior to that, looked pretty decent against Pavlovich, and I want to be 100% transparent whenever I talk about fights, but I did not like Cortez Acosta for a long time. I was impressed with him last time out. I think he's starting to build into a nice, fun character in a division that's desperate for it, but just taunting at times when he shouldn't be. Takedown defense questionable at best, and I don't know. I just didn't really rate him all that highly, but the improvements he's made fight to fight and the wins he's getting under his belt now, I mean, you can't ignore it anymore. And you can't be stubborn in any sport, really, but especially in MMA when it comes to picking fights and all that good stuff. So I do like Cortez Acosta here. Shamil, I mean, he is a wrecking ball in the first round. I mean, Thomas Peterson win is nothing to I don't know, ignore. I mean, Dontel Mays is what it is, but he's looked good at times. I mean, he's super aggressive. He's the better wrestler here. He'll probably be able to secure a takedown or two. It's just going to be a matter of can Cortez either defend that or work his way back to his feet. Excuse me. Heavyweights are historically volatile, especially the lower the rankings you go. This is a fight that's kind of binary. There's also a lot of interesting nuance here in that Cortez is taking this on short notice. We haven't seen Gaziev in a while. It's kind of in Gaziev's backyard. He's probably going to have the crowd behind him. But yeah, Cortez Acosta continues to impress, and I do think he's the fighter who's showing greater improvements from fight to fight. So I'm going to be on him pretty heavily here. 8,500 on DK. They just added him. 17 over on FanDuel, 24% owned on DK, just under that over on FanDuel for him. And then if we're looking at Gaziev, where is he? Just got another monitor up. I don't mean to stare off into the distance. Yeah, not very popular at all, honestly, 8,400. So I would say like there's definitely leverage potential there for Gaziev. I do think Cortez Acosta can extend the fight. And Gaziev is a gasser, for lack of a better word. He's going to probably not have the cardio to really sustain his game plan of repeated takedowns, trying to maintain top control for 3 rounds. So I do like Cortez Acosta here. It's not a confident play. I will have heavy exposure to both sides of this fight as far as DFS goes. And I think it ends inside the distance, but that's not a guarantee with these two. We've seen them both go to a decision a lot more than most other heavyweights. All right, we got another interesting matchup here. This time they're fighting at flyweight or bantamweight. I believe it's at flyweight between Tagir Ulanbekov and Kyoji Horiguchi. So Horiguchi's fought at bantamweight. Um, this fight is at flyweight. Yeah. Okay. I wanted to confirm that. Horiguchi did have a run in the UFC years ago. Like, I think, I don't want to be wrong here, but I think it was 2019, 13, 14. Okay. I was way off. 16. Um, I do remember some of that run, but more of my memories of Horiguchi come with his time in Ryzen and Bellator, more so Bellator. Um, hasn't been in the UFC in years, but he's been taking on a high level of opponent. I should have pulled up his topology or his sure dog on another screen. But I mean, he's fought for titles. He has wins over guys like Sergio Pettis. He's been in there against a really solid level of opponent. I mean, Patchy Mix, say what you will about him. Pretty big bantamweight, though. I mean, Horiguchi was able to do pretty well against him. And yeah, I mean, he's well rounded. The issue in this matchup, I think, could be the size. And Horiguchi's another aging fighter that's cutting down to a weight class probably below where he would be most comfortable. Taking on Tagir Ulanbekov out of that Khabib camp, don't know what else to call it. Bit of a, I don't know, redheaded stepchild because he's never really been fighting on the level of the other guys that fight out of there, the Umar, Usman, obviously Islam, Khabib, but he's talented and he's a tough out for most. Good striker, very long for the division. He looks massive next to Horiguchi here. Shouts out to Jake in our Discord who posted the picture of their face off. They're only listed 2 or 3 inches apart in height, but honestly, you look at that, it's probably 6 or 7 inches. The reach is 7 inches here. Tagir is a southpaw, which is going to give Horiguchi some interesting looks. And while I do think Horiguchi is the better striker, I think he's the better process and he's more consistent. Just a 55% takedown defense listed, and Tagir, someone who I do think is going to be able to impose his grappling, at least in the first and second round. So Horiguchi, talented, well rounded. Tagir tends to fight to the level of his competition, whether that's a good or a bad thing, depends on the matchup. I can see this going either way. I do think it goes to the scorecards, though. So I don't know how aggressively you need to be on either of these fighters. I mean, Tagir, the most takedowns he's had in a UFC fight is 5, and even then, he hasn't scored all that well, other than when he's finding submissions. He could maybe find that finish here. I don't think it's super likely though. Horiguchi again, he's been in there against really, really solid grapplers. Good job defending jiu-jitsu on the mat. And he's the better striker. So I do think you want to mix him in as an underdog, but I'm on Tagir here. It's just been a while since we've seen Horiguchi. I do think he's a bit more weathered of these two. Ulanbekov just not a very active fighter. It's always a knock on him, but when we do see him, he does tend to look good. And I think this is the first time he's fighting twice in a year in a long time. So shouts out to Gear for that. I am picking him here. I don't think I want to be heavy on either side of this for DFS. If you're desperate for underdogs, I do think Horiguchi is worth mixing in your exposures, but at the money line, a fight I'd probably just lay off of around minus 230, where we have a lot of fights in that range on this card. So pick your spots for sure. Pretty interesting matchup here between a debutante in Luke Riley and one Bogdan Grad. Luke Riley fights out of the, what's it called? Next Gen Camp. Is that the name of it? With Patty Pimblett, Molly McCann, Shamrock, who's also on this card, but he's probably the more similar of the two guys on this card when we're comparing their styles to Patty. I mean, actually, no, I take that back. Luke is the striker. He's a striker first. High volume, decent defensive grappler. He does have opportunistic submission ability, but he wants to stand and bang in pretty much all of his fights. He's looked decent for Cage Warriors, but more recently, we've seen a lot of these Cage Warrior prospects kind of disappoint when they break into the UFC. And while I do think Riley's been impressive, I mean, he's been hittable. A lot of his fights, even against low level opponents, are him taking a ton of damage and then coming back, winning in the late rounds, pulling off late finishes. I mean, he's a really fun fighter to watch. But he takes a lot of damage. He lands damage. He will have the power advantage here probably in this matchup against Grad. But I do think Grad is the better process. I do think his grappling ability here could be the difference as well. So another underdog I'm going to be pretty heavy on. Might actually take a stab on him on the money line as a pick as well. 7,100 for Bogdan Grad here. The model likes him. I believe he's actually rated higher than Luke Riley, which makes him a very appealing play. Historically, when we're looking at the model, whenever the underdog is the better of the next play, usually a good sign. Grad, he is very aggressive, sometimes to a fault. We saw him finish against Tom Nolan on the Contender Series. Since then, he's gone 1-1. I was taking down a bunch against Naimov. Not really going to have to worry about that here in this matchup. He is the better wrestler. He averages 3.3 takedowns per 15 minutes. Riley making his debut. I mean, he's talented. He could definitely find a finish here, whether it be by KO or like catches some crazy sub, but I think more likely KO. I think Grod, if this fight gets extended, is the better fighter. I think he is going to win more minutes. So I'm on Grod here as the underdog. Again, I'm a little bit concerned about the durability. I think if there is a finish, it's probably on the Riley side. So I would want some exposure to Riley, but as far as underdogs go, especially at the price, 7,100 for Bogdan Grod is very appealing to me. Again, he has the UFC experience. I mean, floating around plus 200 to plus 210, depending on your book. Really solid play. And while I do think Riley's talented, he's another kid that probably needs to be handed that first loss. I mean, we see it a lot of the time. Once a guy gets humbled, Mo Nickel last week. I mean, coming off that loss looked tremendous with that head kick KO over Adolfo Vieira. Riley, I mean, very big ego, similar to Patty, which is good if you're a fighter, but I do think Grod poses an interesting matchup for him. So could Grod die early, get knocked out? Certainly. I could see Riley maybe landing like a 1-2 up the middle, something like that. But if Grod's able to get his grappling going, excellent underdog play, really good play for DFS. All right, all right. Another matchup here we have between, I want to pronounce this correctly, Saeed is Gakamayev. I think I did pretty good. Taking on Nicholas Dalby, excuse me. Dalby, obviously, I mean, he's won a lot of people money over the years. Always an underdog, always fights hard. He's always there in the third round, and a lot of his wins have been comeback wins, similar to a Luke Riley. But he is often the heavy underdog, usually the better grappler than the better strikers he faces, usually the better striker than the better grappler he faces. He's extremely well rounded, but he's in a tough spot here. He's getting up there in age. I mean, to see him KO'd against Randy Brown, certainly not a good sign. I was completely dominated on the ground against Fakrdinov. Not completely, actually. That fight was closer than I'm saying right now. But I do think here against Isgakmayev, he's probably going to be in some trouble. Saeed, I'll call him because his name's hard to pronounce. Definitely likes to grapple. We've seen him fight for One, Eagle, UAE, a lot of good promotions. I mean, he's a dangerous striker, but he does prefer to grapple. One of his only losses came against Carlston Harris, where he pretty much stuck his neck in a choke. I don't think we have to really worry about that here. I mean, Dalby does have a few submissions on his record, but Saeed just a much better grappler. He's younger, more explosive, very muscle bound like many of his teammates. And I do think he's going to have the better cardio here, which is crazy to say because Dalby's kind of built a career on having the better cardio. So I don't know that I want to pay 9,300 for him. I mean, he could find an early finish, but if he doesn't, I could see him scoring like 80 points in a dominant decision win. So I don't mind Saeed here. I'm curious what the model has him. Yeah, he's not really rating as one of the top OF index players. I mean, he's fourth and he's low owned, so you can mix him in. But again, Dalby historically durable. I know he's coming off the KO loss, but I think he could extend this fight to the point where it's going to be tough for the favorite to pay off the price tag. Minus 330 feels a little bit inflated if we're being honest, just because we've seen Dalby have a lot of success as an underdog. But I do think the favorite gets it done here. I do think he's able to get that grappling going in front of a crowd that's certainly going to be in his favor as well. All right, another matchup where I'm pretty interested in the underdog, and that may be alarming to some. We got Alex Perez here taking on Asu Almabayev. So Perez coming off that loss into Surotaya, where his leg was pretty much snapped as Tyra took his back. You could argue whether it was intentional or not, regardless. Tyra's a beast. Prior to that, went over Nicolau, fought extremely competitively against Mohamed Mokayev. Did not get the win there, but Perez, I mean, another well-rounded vet. He's good everywhere. He's the better striker technically in this matchup. I think he's the better. I don't want to say better wrestler, but I like his process more. Almabayev, kind of a guy who spams takedowns at times, and yeah, here I just don't know that that's going to work. So Almabayev averages 4.6 takedowns landed per 15 minutes, which usually scores well for DFS. But he's taken on Perez with a 77% takedown defense, a guy who has fought the best of the best in the division, fought against Figueiredo for the title. I mean, as good as Asu's looked, I mean, he held Ochoa down for 15 minutes. I don't know that he's going to be able to do, or 9 of 15 minutes, but I don't know that he's going to be able to do that here against Perez. I mean, Manel Cap knocked him out. Can't really put too much on him for that. But hate MMA math, but I got to bring this up. I mean, Asu fought to a decision against Nick Lau, a fighter that Perez was able to KO a couple years ago. So I don't know. Again, I'm talking myself into it. I'm not confident in Perez here, but I do think he has the better striking. I think he can create moments between the scrambles where he's going to be able to land damage. I don't know that he's going to find a finish, but I do think he's underpriced, if I'm being completely honest. I mean, Asu looks decent in the model. Not like it's something you need to be jamming into your exposures. Let's see. Trying to find Perez. He's not up there. Yeah, he's pretty low owned as well. But again, I think he's live as an underdog. I am concerned about the durability. I am concerned about the age. I do think that he could be submitted here as well. It's just also kind of a decision type fighter, in my opinion, in spite of recent results. And I think Perez, if he extends this fight, could win more minutes, which is enough for me to take a few shots on him. Again, you hear it in my voice. I'm not super confident, but I do think Perez is a live underdog. Almabayev could score well. There are other payups I would much rather be getting to, though. One of them right here, Abdul Rahman Yakiaev. Good striker, strong team kick, moves forward, fights, able to put pressure on pretty much anyone he's faced so far. I mean, impressive, flashy knockouts, a lot of early finishes, and he's taking an opponent here in Rafael Surkaya. Am I even pronouncing that right? I'm trying to block this guy out of my mind. Yeah, Rafael Surkira, not Kaya, but regardless, not a great fighter when we're talking about UFC level MMA. I mean, he's been finished in all three, or he's been finished in two of his three UFC fights. He's 0-3. He's fighting for a job here. Last time out, I mean, lost to Walker. Prior to that, Bukowskis and Islam both finished him, guys who are okay. But I actually do rate this kid. Yakiaev here based on the few fights I've watched. If I'm being completely honest, in running film this week, like there's a ton of newcomers. This was not a fight I spent a ton of time on, more so because I think Sakura is terrible and I think he's going to get knocked out here very early. I saw enough out of Yakayev that I think he's going to be able to find that finish. And looking at the model, I mean, it's reassuring that it agrees 165 OF index rating, which is the best on the board. He's going to be popular, but not to the point that you shouldn't be loading up on him. Love him here. Really no interest in Sakura, who I don't think is UFC level. Again, we'll see. I'll dig deeper into this guy and his style as we move forward. But what I've seen, he's got a kicking, heavy striking style, really powerful. Good footwork too. I think he has some wrestling in his back pocket if he needs it. I don't think he'll need it here. So on Abdul Rahman Yakiaev, money line's a bit crazy, minus 2,000 or whatever. But you can bet rounds, you can bet props. There's ways to go about it. All right, continue another sip here. A few more fights, guys. Again, appreciate you being here. This one between Alexandre Topuria and Bezkat Almakan. So Topuria, the brother of Ilya Topuria, looked pretty decent in his debut against Colby Thickness. A bit of a disappointing result, though, in that he didn't land a ton of damage. I mean, he controlled the fight. Um, wasn't as flashy as I think people wanted him to be, just because they are comparing him to his brother. But he's a well-rounded fighter. He can wrestle against strikers. He can strike against wrestlers. I actually think his striking is his greatest strength. Good boxer, similar to his brother, especially in at close range. Does a good job mixing the body shots. But yeah, it seems like he could be tentative at times. Also, not really an extensive MMA record at 6-1. Somewhat untested and unexperienced, but definitely talented and solid everywhere for the most part. Taking on Bezkat Almakan. And the big difference here, in my opinion, that favors Taporia is going to be the size and strength. Bezkat, a guy who prefers to strike. We've seen him grapple a little bit, but the KO over Katona actually dropped Umar Nurmagomedov early in that fight before Umar was able to control him on the map. But I think Taporia, if he's smart here, is just going to grapple. And I do think on the feet, he's not going to be as afraid of Almakan as maybe even Umar was at the start of that fight, just trying to take him down. Not that Umar was afraid. Like, that's not the word I should be using, but again, I don't think Taporia is concerned about being taken down here. I think he's going to pursue takedowns of his own. And I think when it comes to the striking, Bezkat's dangerous. Um, Taporia is going to get hit a little bit, but I do think that as this fight wears on, he's going to lay more volume. He's going to be mixing in the body shots better. I think there's light kick opportunity here for him as well. So yeah, I'm backing Taporia. Is it confident? No. It's just Almakan feels a bit overrated coming off that win over Katona, where he quickly knocked him out. And prior to the fight against Umar, I mean, people weren't rating him all that highly, and then he got a little bit over, I don't know, hyped in the market, in my opinion, because he survived in a loss to Umar. So I don't know. can see this going either way. I do think Topuria is the side. I can see the UFC wanting to kind of pump his stock a little bit. Obviously, they're trying to have a card in Spain with his brother likely to headline, one of the best pound for pound fighters in the world. So there is a business reason to maybe put him in favorable matchups. And as good as Albakan has looked, I think this is a different test for him here against a guy who could wrestle and strike. So that's going to be the difference for him. Speaking of wrestlers, we have another fight where I'm pretty interested in the underdog on, if I'm being completely honest. And Topuria, before we move on, a slight favorite. So actually, that fight, books have it as a pick 'em, and I get it because we haven't seen a lot out of Topuria, but I do think he has enough to get it done. No confidence, though. Just keep that in mind. A similar line here, we have Ishmael Nordayev taking on Ryan Loder, the American wrestler. Nordayev, better striker in this matchup, but he was kind of picked apart against Jung Young Park his last time out. And I think here the gap in the grappling is going to be more significant than the gap in the striking. So I'm not confident, but I actually like Ryan Loder here as an underdog, assuming he is going to be able to get his wrestling going. Nordayev, 73% takedown defense, but we've seen him taking down a bunch so far in the UFC. Loder is a wrestler first. He has decent striking ability. He throws big kicks, but they're kind of slow. Telegraphs a lot of what he does, but I do think here Nordayev doesn't necessarily have the footwork uh, to defend and not get taken down. I will say I'm like concerned about not having exposure to Nordayev because he's very live to maybe find an early finish just because I don't know what to think about Ryan Loder's chin. It hasn't looked great if I'm being completely honest. But when it comes to skill, I just think the wrestling's the difference. I'm going to back Loder here as an underdog. I'll definitely have exposure to both sides of this fight. I can see it going either way, but it is binary, and I do favor the grappler. Um, Here we got an interesting matchup. Another guy fighting at a Paddy's camp. We got Shamrock taking on Rulo Alayev. So Alayev is a grappler. He's going to be pursuing takedowns. Usually that scores well for DFS. We actually saw him out grapple a really talented grappler in Joe Selecki his last time out. I'm just pulling up the statistics here right now. Alayev still undefeated, averages 2.6 takedowns per 15 minutes. Again, not a great striker offensively. He doesn't throw out much volume, but he is pretty sound when it comes to his defense. Does a good job circling away from his opponents. And when he pulls them in, that's where we see him kind of shoot for those takedowns. Decent body lock. He has a few ways to get the fight there. And this Shamrock guy, I mean, I don't know what to think of him, if I'm being completely honest. More like Patty than Riley is, that he is going to be kind of looking for submissions at times, but I don't know. Just kind of a killer, be killed kind of guy. Super aggressive to the point that he is there to be hit in exchanges. And again, against a questionable level of regional opponent in the current iteration of Cage Warriors, I just don't necessarily rate him all that highly. I mean, looking at the money line, minus 280 Alayev feels a little bit inflated. Rock, the more dangerous striker, but I think technically Aliyev's defense can keep things close on the feet. I do think he's a much better grappler to the point that that's where we're going to see most of this fight take place. At the price, though, I'm not expecting a finish, so I do think he's overpriced. Probably won't have much exposure to Aliyev. Don't mind mixing in a share or two of Rock just because there's a lot of unknowns around him. But again, I think Aliyev gets it done probably by decision. Probably doesn't score too well, though, for DFS. Last fight on the card, then we will do dummy builds on both sites. I'll give you guys my best bets, answer any questions if there are any. We have Marek Bulo taking on Denzel Freeman. These are two debutantes here at heavyweight. Bulo fighting out of Poland. I mean, he's looked good, but against really, really low level competition. I mean, he's able to take his opponents down, grind them out for a finish. We have not seen him go to the second round. So we see this a lot, especially up in heavyweight. These guys tear through pretty terrible regional competition, then they get tested when they make it to the UFC. Freeman here, I mean, I don't know. He's shown more holes in his game, but he's been taking on the much better level of opponent, fighting out of LFA, I think, primarily. Yeah, he's also been in the PFL, taking on pretty decent level of competition, and he's the more well-rounded fighter here. I do think his wrestling background should be able to keep him off the mat for the most part if Bulo is shooting, and I do think he's the better striker here. But more than anything, I think he's going to have the better cardio and durability. So I think Freeman's the side here. But again, this is a low level, fight at heavyweight between two debutantes that are surrounded with question marks. So probably get some Bulo shares. We can see this go either way. Bulo's never been out of the first round, so his win condition is via early finish. So definitely worth getting exposure to him here. But I want both sides. I do think Freeman gets it done. Not confident at the point that I'll be betting him though. All right, making good time here. Shouts out Ju Young. Go. Appreciate you, my man. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, guys. But let's do the dummy build now on both sides. And again, if you guys have any questions about any fights on this week card, whether it be betting, breakdown, or DFS related, feel free to get those over. But let's build. And I do want Armin in most of my lineups. And if we're sorting by salary, I mean, looking at the top of index plays, we got Rocky Yakimai up here. I think we do try to jam him in because I think there's enough underdogs that I'm willing to kind of take shots on. Hermansson's one. If he gets starts early, he dies. He dies. It is what it is. I think Perez could extend his fight. I also like Barton Grad. So like I don't know. Going kind of stars and scrubs here. This is definitely more of a high risk build. If I'm being completely honest, probably want to live in the middle range a bit more this week if you are going the other way. I think Gary is a good play here, but for DFS, I think Ozdemir definitely has more finishing upside. Don't want to leave no salary. It is a 14 fight card though. I got a lot of low owned underdogs here, so this isn't a terrible lineup. Good way to get different. Let's take a look over on FanDuel. I mean, similarly, I do like Tsarukyan. He just scores really well. Maybe we don't pay all the way up for Yakyayev this time around. Let's see. I like Cortez Acosta. Could find a late finish. I mean, obviously Shamil has upside as well. I think Tapori is a bit underpriced. Freeman 14 looks good to me. I'll mix him in here. Wow. Yeah, Hermansson is really cheap over here as his grind. 16 left per. Let's go to Poria. That'll get us up into the next price range here. I don't know. We go to gear, and then I don't know. Nordayev. I don't love Nordayev though. Maybe we go with Loader and just hope he gets the wrestling going. Get a little bit different, leaving some salary on the table. All right. So best bets like last week, we went 3-2 again. We've been going 3-2 almost every week. I got some value for you here. Again, for the best bets, I have only plays that are minus 200 or better. Just looking for value, and I want them to be hitting at a very high rate. 40 and 35 right now. Not great. I want to get over 60%. I think we could do that hopefully by the end of the year. Just a couple cards left. But here we go. We got this opening fight. Bulo's never been out of the first round. Got to play the under 1.5. Minus 154. I like that. I think Rakhmani Yakyayev can run through Rafael Surkiria there. Minus 160 for that feels pretty solid. Perez could get finished. I think more likely than not, though, the fight goes the distance. Just needs to get 29-28. He could lose on every scorecard or just convince one judge he's the better fighter in this matchup. And boom, he's covering that point spread, even a loss. I like him plus 3.5 near even money. Ozdemir Metafield, this could turn into a boring mess, but I think more likely than not, Ozdemir is going to put enough damage on Metafield to either find an early finish or force Metafield to quit. And if he doesn't, Metafield always live for a finish of his own. I like the under 2.5. And then I am on Tsarukyan by K over sub. I think he probably finds a sub if I'm being completely honest. Hooker's talented, he's great, but stylistically, this is just the type of matchup that Tsarukyan should be able to flex in. Additionally, I think he needs that title shot sooner rather than later, and to get that, a finish would be good for him there. These are long shots, definitely lower confidence plays. We got Ryan Loader to win by decision plus 350, just feels a little bit crazy to me. Plus 125 on the money line. I do think this fight could very easily go to the scorecards if he doesn't get knocked out. So good value on him there. Ground by decision plus 550 feels insane. A fight that could play out very close. Two guys who are durable, push a pace, but they could both gas out. Things could slow down. I like that number on him. Gary by KO or sub. I think he could outclass Bilal to the point that he could find a finish. This is by no means confident. But again, plus 300 for that. And then Tsarukyan, to get an even better number than the inside, you get plus 275 on the submission. So again, really fun card, but it is at 10 a.m. Eastern tomorrow. And if you're not already in the Discord, definitely check out the links in the description below. You get the UFC slate breakdowns, access to the model, ownership projections, and the new and improved lineup builder. If you guys check out the channel, I think there is some videos kind of introducing the updates to that tool. But yeah, find me on Twitter at DFS. You can hit me up there. If you're in the Occupied Discord, come say hello. Always appreciate talking fights. We get a lot of sharp minds in there too. We'll be up there early tomorrow, sweating, complaining about referees, all that fun stuff. But yeah, let's have some fun. Good luck, everyone. Crush this week. Make some money. Take care and good luck.